Welcome to Unleash Leadership, the podcast where bold leaders and changemakers come together to share their stories, strategies, and insights for creating a lasting impact on society. Carla Blanco is your host. For over 28 years, she has been navigating the complexities of the corporate and government worlds, a journey that's taught her that authentic leadership isn't just about climbing the ladder. It's about lifting others as you rise. Along the way, she uncovered the unwritten rules that drive success, the ones no one tells you about, but that can define your career and legacy. On this podcast, she'll sit down with extraordinary guests from around the globe, leaders, visionaries, and innovators who are leaving their mark on the world. Together, they'll explore their journeys, uncover their tips and tricks, and dive into the challenges they've overcome to inspire you to excel in whatever you're facing. Whether you're climbing the corporate ranks, building your personal brand, or leading change in your community, this podcast is your space to grow, learn, and unleash the leader within. So grab a notebook, get ready to take action, and join us on this journey to unleash our leadership potential. Before we dive in, make sure to follow Carla on Instagram, LinkedIn, at Carla Blanco Coach, Carla with a K, and YouTube at Carla Blanco Show to stay connected and get even more leadership tips and updates.
Today, I'm excited to introduce Mark Bateman, who is a board-level advisor, executive coach, and CEO of Wickwell, known for driving transformational leadership. With a decade in tech consulting and leading global projects, he brings deep commercial insight to C-suites and boards. He has coached thousands of leaders across sectors and authored the best-selling book Disruptive Leadership. Mark is valued for his calm, pragmatic style, cutting to the core of issues and inspiring real change with agility, resilience, and purpose. Welcome, Mark. Well, Mark, tell us about your journey.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here today, Carla. My background is probably a little bit different from most in that I entered the world of leadership through my dad, my father, and my father was in church leadership. And as a very small boy, I would watch my father, and churches are really quite interesting because it's a very, very public leadership role. And I would see my father both in the church building, I would see him with the congregation, and I would see him at home. And without realizing, I was studying what makes for great leadership from being knee high. And we had just a remarkable opportunity. We had leaders from all over the world would come and stay in our house to come and speak at the church. We would go and speak. My dad would go and speak in other churches. So we would go and visit other leaders as well. So I had this really global perspective of different styles of leadership. Who were the leaders that were great at vision, great at building a leadership team, great communicators, who could engage people, who made others feel special. And I was watching all of this as a small boy, and rightly or wrongly, I was kind of judging my father a little bit as well, because I could see what he was really good at, and I could see really what he wasn't good at. And so for me, leadership has been flowing through my veins my entire life. I've either been in leadership or I've supported leaders really from the age of 13 when I started leading my very first group. Originally I thought that would be within the church, but actually it became evident that it was much more within the business world. So I've been running businesses really since 1996 now, as I say, either as the CEO or the managing director, or I've been coaching other senior leaders across the globe. So really, that's a little bit about why I am now today as the CEO of Wickwell, working with CEOs and very senior level leaders globally.
I love that. And actually, it's really inspiring to learn about you advising, coaching leaders from board of directors, different executives, and now getting close in Wickwell with leaders around the globe. Thank you, Mark, for sharing that story. Of course, you were surrounded with leaders since you were a little kid. That is
Yeah.
that is really, really inspiring.
Yes.
Let's talk about disruptive leadership. That is a bold title.
Hmm.
What does using fire to drive purposeful change mean in today's corporate landscape?
So for me, leadership is about influence. And if you think about what a fire is and does, is a fire is always disruptive. It is always changing the outcome in some way. If you have a very tightly controlled fire, for example, if you have gas in your kitchen and you're using it to heat your kettle, this is a really good use of fire, right? It's very constrained, it's purposeful as compared to a wildfire. A wildfire is very destructive and it burns indiscriminately. That is not the kind of fire that you want. And what I've seen is I've studied leadership from, yes, a small age, but much more so within the last 15 years within the corporate environment, is that actually as leaders, we can have the same impact. And either we burn in a very controlled way to achieve something that is really meaningful and purposeful, or maybe we just allow our ego to get in the way. It's all about status, it's all about power, it's all about money. And as a result, it's equivalent to a wildfire, which actually is very destructive for people and potentially the planet. So disruptive leadership for me, I think every leader ultimately is seeking to disrupt or challenge the status quo because you're trying to affect a different outcome. And in trying to affect a different outcome, you have to change the way things are today. So you are, by definition, if you're in leadership trying to drive some kind of outcome, you are disruptive. And so that's really the heart of disruptive leadership. And yeah, that's the basis of the whole book around disruptive leadership.
Well, and let's talk about what recurring leadership blind spots do you see
Mm.
at C-suite level, and how can they be addressed? And
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, Carla, I love this question, and I thought long and hard because there's so many blind spots that you could talk about. Even today, I was coaching somebody earlier today, and I read this question to them, and I said, "What would you recommend?" I said, "Oh well, it's the disconnect between leadership and people, or it's about." And they started looking at all these different things, and I said, "Actually, for me, I've got a key phrase. The key blind spot, I believe, is where anybody who's in leadership believes this. It's about me.
Mm.
So the focus, it's about personal ego, it's about my status, it's about me trying to get my thoughts, my communication, it's about me, how do people see me? And as a result, there's this essence within actually any leadership levels of um, trying to address what I would call a broken ego or a fragile ego. And that broken or fragile ego is the perfectionist, the overbearing leader, the leader that wants the limelight because they want to feel special in some way, or the one who always has to be right, or the one who always has to talk over anybody else. So you see these behaviors coming out, and ultimately it's because for them, it's all about me. How am I being perceived? Do people like me? Am I valued? Am I being the kind of person I feel I should be? And so I think that's a trap and a blind spot for anybody in leadership where it's all about me.
Mm, I love that one. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. I think like continuum. So you have that me phase on the juniority of leadership, and then they keep growing into a servant
Yes,
leadership, and
yes,
they become more senior. I appreciate
exactly.
that. And in
Exactly.
your experience, what distinguishes a transformational CEO from one who simply manages the status quo?
Gosh, again, so many answers to this question as well. I think first of all, I mean, there are so many examples of bad leadership in the world today, right? You just have to turn on your news and we can see the impact of bad leadership. And for me, bad leadership is where people are operating out of still their broken ego. Okay. So when we talk about transformational leadership, we talk about leaders who are genuinely, purposefully driving transformational outcomes. The first thing I believe they've done is they've healed themselves, right? They've done some therapy, they've done coaching, they've done personal development. Typically, they're a continuous learner, right? They see every single day as an opportunity to grow, learn, and to develop. And in that journey, I believe the moment we start to heal our what's inside of us, right, typically from our childhood or other past traumas, and the moment we start to heal that, then it's less about us and it's more about others. And so true transformation, as you say, you talk about servant leadership aspect. If we come back to what is a really helpful fire, it is a fire that burns with a purpose, number one, and it's very tightly constrained by a set of values or behaviors. So when you put on your gas stove and you put your kettle on top, you don't want a flame that suddenly bursts out by 10 feet or 3 meters, right? You want it to be very tightly controlled. And just a very tightly controlled flame can then boil that water from 0 degrees to 100, to boiling temperature. So it's amazing how purpose that is constrained drives transformation, drives true disruption. Um, so, yeah, what distinguishes a transformational leader from to somebody who simply manages the status quo is they've healed themselves and they're about something that is meaningful and purposeful.
So
And
you started surrounding yourself with amazing leaders since you were a little kid and have this journey. Is there any leadership lesson, something personal that would you like to share? I really love how you are sharing about that ownership of the flame of that passion. Is there any leadership lesson that you would like to share?
in terms of me personally, what
Yeah.
I've gone through,
Mhm.
wow. Um, I have to say, my coming from a church background, the focus was very much on serving others and dealing with the thing that was unhealthy inside, internally. And so the quality of leadership for me is somebody who is, I'm going to use the word clean. And it's a little bit like a fire. If you take some tires from trucks and from cars and you start burning them, it's a horrible fire. It's toxic. There's lots of black smoke. It's dirty. It's not the kind of fire you want to be around. And that for me is an example of a bad leader. They're just toxic. You don't want to be anywhere near them. And for me, there was such a focus on, and this really is actually where the book originally came from, which was this aspect of, the refiner's fire. So if you pull out some precious metal, maybe some gold from the earth, it is full of impurities. How do we convert that piece of rock, which has gold, but also impurities, into something that is 99.999% gold? You've got to put it into the refiner's fire, into heat that is challenging, it's difficult. But it removes the dross. It removes the unwanted materials that are in that lump of rock so that what you're left with is pure gold. And for me, the leadership journey, the leadership maturity, when we're maybe first starting out in leadership, we go through different management grades, we start rising in terms of responsibility and influence within our organizations, is we have such a huge responsibility to develop ourselves because our impact grows as we grow in seniority. And so, actually, the purity that we burn with as a leader, we do not want to be like burning tires. We want to be much more like a spark in a combustion engine, or the flame that's heating a kettle, or any other type of controlled fire, because that achieves the outcome that you want. That's hard work because you've got to have done the work yourself.
Beautiful said. Thank you. Because, well, you made me think about so many things like embracing challenge. Because
Yeah.
when you are starting in leadership, you try to, well, avoid maybe some of the challenges, but actually when you embrace them, you will get into that fire and grow from there.
I want to give you an example. So this morning, I was coaching a senior leader, and about 2 months ago, 6 weeks ago, he'd been told that he was going to become the CEO of a major business, a major company. And he went through the whole process, and they ended up hiring somebody from the outside, somebody from external. And he came on the call this morning, and I said to him, and I don't know if this is going to translate, so I'll say it in two different ways. I said, "You are a shadow of your former self, i.e., you've looked terrible." Right? He was down. He was, I could see he was trying to have that, that energy, that vibrancy, but it was like it just wasn't the same.
Mm.
And so we started to unpack that. And it was as if the experience that he's just gone through, he has lived his whole life believing that as long as he shows up every day, he works his hardest, he does his best, that others will respect him and he will get to that CEO role. Well, he's showed up every single day. He's worked his absolute hardest. He has the respect of others. And then, oh, no, you're not the CEO. And
Mhm.
so he has had this mental map inside his mind of what his life was going to look like. And suddenly, bam, just absolutely not. And so he's oh, what's even the right word? Mortified. He's
Mhm.
disconsolate. He's
Frustrated. Mhm.
frustrated. He's angry. What's the point? Should I just walk? Should I leave? But I've given my whole life to this organization. So we started to unpack what's actually happening for him. And what he realized, and what we realized as we were going through this conversation, was that his whole life he's been seeking the respect of others.
Mm.
And I said, is this how you want to live your life? Where your life is measured by the respect that others give you, something you're not in control of? Or is this a wake-up call? Is this a moment where actually you say, what truly matters to you on the inside? Instead of seeking validation from the outside, the respect of others. You've been passed over for the CEO role. This could be the best gift you've been given because you now have to challenge your mental model that you have inside your head as to what success looks like. And he was saying, what I need to do is I need to be really clear about what I want. What is it I really want? Number one. Number two, um, I need to make sure it works for me because he's always done it for everybody else. And number three, I need to put a force field around myself to protect myself
Mm.
so that what I'm doing is the right thing, regardless of how anybody else sees it. And it's just an example of the deep work that we need to do as leaders. And I truly believe that as he goes through this process now, he will become a far better leader because he will now lead from a place of conviction,
Mhm.
internal, rather than for external respect.
Exactly. Pleasing others.
Yeah.
There are so many unwritten rules on
Yeah.
the leadership journey. Thank you for unpacking this
Mm.
example. It is so valuable.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. And well, and leading week well, and the mission is to fix the broken leadership ladder.
Yes.
What systemic shifts are still needed to ensure equity in top leadership roles,
Yeah,
Mark?
so gosh, I mean, we could do a whole podcast on this one, Carla, and I know it's a subject very dear to your heart as well from our time at Intel.
Yes.
But um, I think it's worth stating first of all that there's been a huge change, specifically in the US,
Mhm.
around this whole subject of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And it's almost like there's an ideological culture war that is happening. And I think that people have missed, or businesses have missed, what is really important here. It's I'm using these words that are almost outlawed now. I don't know if you've seen the banned list of words now within some US agencies. But equity, what does equity mean? Well, it means that people have an equal opportunity to achieve something. And so if we
Mhm.
talk about meritocracy, we talk about fairness. Um, to me, these are all absolutely important words when we talk about equity. But the battle has become based on woke versus non-woke. Whereas what we've lost sight of is actually if you have a leadership team or you have people inside your company that all look the same, they all sound the same, they all maybe attended the same sort of universities, they come from the same place in the world, the results that your company drives is going to be worse than a company that has a more diverse or a broader mix of people from different backgrounds, different parts of the world, different genders, different ethnic minorities. And we have so much data now that demonstrates that this isn't an ideological war. It's not.
Mhm.
It's about business. It's good business. If we want a better um, operating and revenue generating business, we don't want a homogenous team, i.e., a team that all looks the same. We want a team with lots of diversity in it because those teams ask better questions. They're more innovative. They ensure greater customer service. They drive employee engagement. They create a culture of safety. There are less risks internally in terms of safety. Um, there are less risky decisions from the top. So you're much more likely, for example, to invest in transformational R&D rather than going after a risky merger or acquisition. So as you start pulling out all this data, it's like, okay, wait, why are we even talking about this? Why are we even talking about this? And so I think the number one thing for me in terms of the systemic shift is to make the conversation about performance. I believe in every single meeting room, in every single company, in every place in the world, it should say, if all of your team looks the same, you're all fired. Because there's a performance impact of that and it's quantifiable. I can't remember the exact statistic right now, but it's something like your company, it will fall basically from the top quartile to the bottom quartile if you're homogenous. And homogenous means you're all the same. You're all
Mhm.
men, you're all white, you're all Indian, you're all women. Doesn't matter what that homogenous group is. If you're all the same, you're nowhere near as strong as a broader mix of human beings. So it just makes common sense. So for
Mhm.
me, that is the systemic shift that it's not a culture war, it's not a gender war, it's not a war.
Exactly.
And from Weekwell's perspective, we have the data that shows that if you drive more inclusive leadership, so you have a leadership pipeline from entry levels all the way through to the very top that has a broad mix of every type of person, right? Where it's skin color, whether it's gender, whether it's background, whether it's socio-demographic, whether it's age, whatever it happens to be, you
Mhm.
drive better results for your business, profits. It's
Mhm.
better for people and also it's better for the planet. That's
Exactly.
kind of important right now.
Yes, driving inclusion for all. So I
Exactly.
appreciate
Yes.
that.
Yes.
And well, the world is changing so fast, and there are so many crises going on. How do you advise leaders to maintain clarity, resilience, and momentum
Uh,
without burning out?
Without burning out. I think this is one of the big challenges of anybody who cares. Whenever I speak in any specifically face-to-face workshops for managers or leaders, I always ask them, why are you a manager or why are you a leader? And ultimately, everybody's answer ultimately comes down to drive impact, right? They want to make a difference. And I believe as human beings, we all want to make a difference. So how do we ensure we don't burn out in the process of trying to make a difference? And I think there's some practical things, and I do talk about this, surprise, surprise, in my book as well, because this aspect of fire, a fire can burn out. So how do you keep your fire burning? And a fire needs three things. It needs heat, fuel, and oxygen. Heat is your purpose. It's your purpose in action. Your fuel, from a business sense, if you're a leader, it's your incredibly talented people that you have in your team, and it's your cash, it's your resources. And your oxygen is your customers, your market. but you can apply this personally to yourself as well. So as a leader, if you are not operating at the top of your game, you know that your team is unlikely to be operating at the top of their game. So how do you protect yourself? Some very practical things. If you're around the WeQual ecosphere, you'll hear me talking about canaries. So I burnt out in 2007-8, and it took me a number of years to recover. So I know the pain of burnout, and I know how hard I had to work to recover from that burnout. And so it's absolutely baked into both my life. You read it in the book. It's everything that we do at WeQual. So I have this expression, your canaries. Now, if you go back 200 years, the miners of old would take, certainly in the UK, they would have a little metal cage and they'd put some canaries inside the cage. And then when they went underground, as long as those canaries were singing, it meant the air was clean. You could carry on mining. The moment your canaries stop singing, it means that they can smell the bad air that you cannot smell, the toxic air that's going to poison you. You've now got a very short period of time to get out of that mine while you still can. And so I have this expression of canaries. Are your canaries singing? And I have some canaries. So one of my canaries is, how often am I going to the gym? Very practical. And everybody in my leadership team knows, my closest advisors know, ask me, how often am I going to the gym? Because if I'm starting to burn out, it means my energy is reducing. My motivation starts to reduce. And I'm going to go, I am too tired to go to the gym. So Mark, how often are you going to the gym? And not just going to the gym. I love weightlifting. How, like, are you lifting heavy weights? Are you doing this in the way that you want to do? And if I'm not doing that, my canary has stopped singing. And I've told my personal board of advisors, if you see, and my leadership team, if you see that, you say to me, Mark, you need to stop right now, because if you carry on, it's going to have disastrous consequences, not only for me personally, but for the business as well, for WeQual, for everything I'm touching, everything I'm involved in. So I need to make some very critical changes very quickly to get back into balance, to reprioritize what's important to me. Because generally burnout happens when we're, in a sense, out of control, right? We're no longer enforcing appropriate boundaries. We've stopped saying no. We're working too many hours. We're giving too much out, and we're not replenishing back in. So just a very practical tip. What are your canaries? Write them down, tell everybody about them, and then keep listening. Make sure they're singing.
Self-awareness and the value of a personal board of advisors is so
Yes,
important.
absolutely.
Thank you for
Yes,
sharing.
my
And
pleasure.
I really like to put down what are the things that bring me joy and ensure that I have them in my calendar.
Yeah,
So
what are they, Carla? What are those things for you?
well, I meditate morning at
Right.
night, but that became like part of my, for more than 20 years, I've been doing that. But something that I really love is the ocean. So to ensure that, well, living in the desert, I go to the lakes, but at least once or twice a year, I go into a beach. This year, I've
Yeah.
been already 3 times, and I know next year, probably once a quarter, I will try to do that.
I
Yeah.
think, Carla, I think this is so important because for me, one of my canaries is the sunshine and blue skies.
Yes.
And I chose to move from the UK to Malta, which is in the Mediterranean. And if I can see the blue sky out of my window right now, and you're going to be very jealous because I can see the blue ocean as well.
Oh,
And
wow.
and that is
Yes.
absolutely because it feeds my soul, right? And if I'm fed personally, it means that I can then give so much more to everybody else that I'm engaged with.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for that sharing. And let's talk about the future. If you
Mm.
were crafting a future-proof leadership playbook for upcoming board members, C-suite, leaders on top, what three principles will be non-negotiable?
I love this question, Carla, and I've thought the longest probably about the answer to this question as well, because obviously I knew it was coming. So I've written down three things And the first one is depending whether you're heading for the executive committee or C-suite, or whether you're now ready for a board role, an external board role of some kind. The first one is proving yourself over time, right? And I've just got proven experience, but proving yourself over time. And we're talking about, joining the XCOM, the C-suite, the board role of a decent sized company. If you're an entrepreneur, and that's, I define myself as an entrepreneur. I've been working since 1996, right? I've never worked for anybody else. So I'm a true entrepreneur. I've built and sold businesses, etc. That's a little bit different because you learn on the job much more as an entrepreneur, and you're on the C-suite automatically if you're founding your own business. But if you're inside a large organization and you're looking upwards, consistent delivery and don't get stuck. It would be number one. Don't stay in your role for too long. And by the way, women tend to stay in roles much longer than men. So if you're a woman listening to this and you're feeling bored, you feel like you've been passed over, time to look for another role somewhere else, because life is really short. So proven experience, number one. Number two is, and this is more true as you start to rise in terms of seniority, is you start to see more of the whole rather than just a part. So you start to see, when we first enter the workforce, we typically become a specialist in something, right? If we're a coder, we're a specialist at coding. If we're in finance, whatever it is about the finance procurement process or accounts, whatever it happens to be, you become an expert. And as you start to rise, you start to manage people, you keep rising in seniority. Then at some point, you start to realize there's other parts of the business. And how do you relate to those parts of the business? How do you engage with them? And as you get towards the C-suite, is about having that more enterprise-wide viewpoint. So you're seeing much, much broader. So it's not just a part, it's the whole. And so actively engaging in understanding what the rest of the business is doing, looking for opportunities to get involved in other parts of the business which are outside of your personal domain of expertise. I talk a little bit about that in the book as well. But then the third thing is ask the right questions. And in the book, I talk about level one, level two, and level three thinking, which applies to types of questions. And I was going to give you 3 questions here right now. You find yourself in a meeting, you're discussing a project, you're discussing something. The first question is, are we getting this right? Right, it's a level 1 question. Tends to be a binary yes, no answer. It speaks to focus, it speaks to process, it speaks to systems, maybe KPIs, are we hitting KPIs? Very important, but level 1. About 55% of all managers globally operate at level 1. Level 2 is, are we doing the right thing? That is a harder question. It takes longer to answer it, right? It's not a yes, no answer now. Are we doing the right thing? Well, I think we are. Why do you think we are? Have we prioritized the right things? What assumptions have we made? Are we still, is the thing we're all spending our energy and our time on still the right thing? So that's really about methodology, strategy, and prioritization. Level 2 thinking. Are we doing the right thing? And then level 3, much harder question. Only maybe about 5% of leaders and maybe top 1% of leaders operate at this level. And the third level is, how do we decide what's right? Oof, that is not a yes, no answer. How do we decide what's right? How do we decide? If we're going to transform the organization, we're going to be implementing AI, we might be cutting 2,500 jobs. How do we decide how to go about that? Well, what's our vision? What's our purpose? What's our values? What's our belief about our employees? What's happening in the rest of the market and the rest of the sector? We might need to change because we have to change, but how are we going to do this? And how do we decide what's right? And do we just cut jobs and put money on the bottom line, or do we invest that in the future, right? These are really difficult questions. How do we decide what's right? And that's where true innovation and disruption comes from, is this level of questions. It's really hard. Bill Gates famously would go for a week, cut himself from all technology. He'd get about 50 books, a big bag of books. He'd get in his little rowing boat, go across to his little cabin on an island somewhere. He would sit there for a week to think about these kinds of questions. It's about getting external, outside in perspectives to help you really think through the really big, gnarly, difficult challenges that as leaders you're going to have to face at that senior level.
Yeah, when we are confronted to those questions, it really make you think on different perspectives. Let's
Yes,
explore. So beyond the trees, take a look to the forest, and where do you see that forest in the future? So yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
yeah, your impact. Thank you for those questions. That's a great gift. Let's talk about challenges and any challenge that you transform into an opportunity and that make you feel proud of it.
Oh, so many. Uh, looking back, actually just recovering from burnout was a big challenge for me at the time. Um, if I think about something more recent, um, so as a company, we were working at the time with women only at the top of the world's largest companies. And we have a development community called We Executives, which is for women at board level, C-suite -1 and -2. We're now opening up to men, but historically that's where we're at. But the big challenge that we heard from all the companies globally, is that the women, we want women to stay inside the organization, but they tend to leave at mid-management level, right?
Mhm.
How can you help us with that? So last January, not this January just gone, so a year and a half ago, we met as a leadership team and we said, right, we want to launch now a community, a development community for mid managers. And we decided to call it Rising Leaders. And we decided in the January we're going to do it. And we had our first 5 founding partners who joined with us from April, the 1st of April. So within 3 months, we decided to do it, built the program. And what it is we run 3 2-hour sessions a month. One session is in APAC, so basically midday in Australia. One is midday in Europe, and one is midday in the Americas, right? So we have 3 different sessions, 3 different executive speakers for each of those 3 sessions. And then we bring all these managers from all these different companies together online through a virtual session where they're hearing from this executive speaker and then they're applying that learning to themselves. And the result has been we have world leading net promoter scores, all of the impact and testimonials from the participants, so such that many of them have chosen to stay on for the second year. And then the progression statistics are amazing as well. Like Westpac in Australia, they had a target of 30% either lateral moves or progression within 12 months. And before the program had even finished, it was already at 25%, such that they wanted to increase it to 50%. Now,
Oh,
sure,
wow.
they're doing other things internally as well, right? We're not the
Exactly.
only supplier here, but that's very powerful. So I'm I'm pretty proud of that in terms of what the team has
Super.
achieved. Yeah.
Super powerful because usually promo rate around the globe in industry is around 8%
Mm, mm,
of and getting double in more than double that is
yeah. Yeah.
is great.
Yeah.
So when you are intentional, things happen. Thank you.
Yes.
I'm
Yes.
really proud of you too and all that we help
Thank
team.
you.
Thank you so much for your footprint in the world and
Oh,
your legacy. Let's, well, we are already at the end of this
mhm.
conversation. Really appreciate your time. Can you share what Unleash Leadership means to you, Mark?
Yeah, I've written an answer to this, but I'm going to change it. So, unleashing leadership for me, and if I was speaking to you personally, Carla, and any listener that's listening to this, I've got first of all one question to you, which is,
Oh,
what is the
goodness.
difference that you want to make,
Mm.
right?
Well, yes. Do you want me to answer right
Go
now?
for it. Absolutely.
Absolutely. That is why we have the name of the podcast Unleash Leadership. So it is leading a global transformation, one leader at a time. So thank you for contributing to this. And that's what it means to me.
Okay. So say it again.
So it is a leading global transformation, one leader at a time, because
Leading global trans. Yes. Sorry.
uh-huh, everything that you shared today with us will be inspiring emerging leaders. And what I aspire is more conscious and inclusive leadership around
Yes.
the globe. So
Yes.
that's what I aspire to.
And so if I'm answering that question for you, it's understanding what's currently blocking you from achieving your vision, your mission, your purpose at an even greater level. Because that's then unleashing your leadership, right? And
Exactly.
so number one is being clear about what you want to do, and you're really clear about what you want to do. Number two then is what's stopping me at the moment? Is it something internal? Is it something external? And being really clear, really identifying what's stopping you. And then third, okay, what's the plan to overcome it? Now doing it. All right.
I
So
love it.
that's it, right? That's at the heart of unleashing leadership. Like every single one of us, you, me, anybody else listening, has the potential to genuinely change the world to become a better place. I absolutely believe that the vast majority of humans on the planet, that's inside.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, how do you want to change the world? Get really clear about it. Now, what's stopping you? Write it down. What's internal? What's external? Internal is likely development work, coaching, personal board of advisors, joining something a program like Requal or whatever, whoever, wherever it is, right? Um, External is understanding, is it a lack of resources? Is it a lack of cash? Is it a lack of visibility? Is it a lack of network? Okay, if it's a lack of network, how are you going to build a network? You're doing this podcast to build your network, to raise your profile, to raise your visibility. That's going to help you achieve your personal vision, right? Same for everybody else. So, yes, for me,
Thank
unleashing
you.
leadership is what is it you want to do? What's stopping you? Build a plan to overcome it. Hold yourself accountable.
Thank you. And as I am all about accountability, I will share with you with what you just shared. So being with an amazing coach, an executive coach here, I will take advantage of that because what is stopping me is myself. I
Right,
mean, if I could, my program has proven to be amazing in terms of results of people advancing their career, but I just have the day just have 24 hours and I don't want to burn out. So what I'm doing next is bringing more coaches to the program so that we can continue to scale. So
right.
thank you for those questions. Thank you for all the gifts during this amazing conversation. I definitely am a fan of Wikwal and the legacy you are building. And well, looking forward to see you soon again. Well, maybe
Thank
in
you.
Malta. That's
Mate,
amazing.
absolutely. Open invite, lots of blue skies and blue oceans, and a lot of history as well.
I
Yes.
love that. Is that
Yes.
that took you there?
Oh gosh, it's a long story as to what got me here, but the sun number one for sure. Um, it's a really amazing, fascinating island. It was really, from my perspective, in its present form, it was built by the Knights of St. John back in the 15 and 1600s. You've still got all the forts that are around the island. It's basically a fortress on an island. It held out during the Second World War against the bombing from Germany. It has a remarkable history, and you can still, in fact, it has the oldest, largest standing temples in the world, dating back more than 6,000 years. It's a very small island. It's remarkable. You've got to come
It's
and visit.
remarkable.
Mm,
Yes, definitely. Thank you
mm,
so much.
yeah.
Bye, Mark. Thank you.
Thank you. Pleasure to spend this time with